afternoon, James Preston with you on 𝐊𝐶𝐞 TV for another edition of Expert Talk's Executive Corner. This Expert Talk will shine a light on independent author Jesse Hyland. Jesse has recently released his debut novel called Abandon, and before we welcome Jesse, it's important to take a look at the growing publishing industry across the country. Now, the Australian book industry continues to hold its share of consumer attention and spending, with ongoing development of consumer ebooks and also modest growth in the audiobook segment, driven by a strong market push by brands including Amazon-owned Audible.com. The Australian consumer book market was worth a staggering $1.979 billion in 2019 and is expected to be worth $2.06 billion in 2024. Representing a compound annual growth rate of 0.84% based on conservative estimates, with some expert forecasts suggesting the growth could even reach upwards of $2.6 billion by 2024. Last year, Nielsen Bookscan reported data suggesting book sales in Australia surged in the week prior to Australia's first lockdown in April, increasing by 35% in volume and 10% in value compared to the same period in 2019, and Australia's leading independent publisher, Allen & Unwin, commented that sales were up significantly throughout 2020 compared to 2019. In short, the appetite for quality literature is ever growing and the publishing sector looks set to boom. And everyone, from investors to budding writers, are benefiting from it, which leads me at long last to introduce this Expert Talk's special guest, 26-year-old Western Sydney author Jesse Hyland. Jesse, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show and congratulations on the debut novel.
Cheers, thank you, James. Thank you very much. It's been interesting. It's been a very interesting journey.
Yeah, I'd imagine it has been quite a journey. Now, before we get into just how long you've spent writing the project itself, let's touch on Abandon, the book. Now, without giving too much away, what's it about?
So Abandon is a neo-Western crime thriller. It's a fiction book. It's set in a large outback town, and it's about a young man who's sort of grown up in a life of crime and whatnot, and he sort of runs in with this sort of wrong people, wrong crowd, and after a botched drug deal, he's left in the middle of nowhere to die, pretty much, and he's trying to make it back to town, and he goes through a physical, emotional, and spiritual journey and just looks back at his life and the town, and that's pretty much the basic premise of it. So,
right, so somewhat almost Walter White meets Crocodile Dundee in the outback.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's a pretty good description. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've had a little read. I'm very much enjoying it so far. Now, how long did it take you to write the novel?
Oh man, it's been actually a long time. I started it in 2013, so it's been almost 8 years. I started it a year after I finished high school, so I was about 19. And I didn't write, I wrote about 100, 150 pages in like 2 years, and then I left it for about 2 to 3 years, and then I came back to it and thought I'd finish it, and so I just wrote the rest, did my first draft, I think 2018, and then just did constant revision, constant editing, and then that's when I started putting out there to all these different publishers to see who was interested.
Yeah, it's a crazy journey you've been on. Pretty much sounds like the hero of your story itself, almost. Now, the early reviews for the book have been very strong. We know there is also fierce competition in the independent book space, but you've put this book out with Aurora House. Now, you're talking about the publishing process. Why them?
So I sent it out to lots of different publishers. I did get a few responses, a lot of positive responses. And a few offers, and I went with Aurora House because I liked the way they conducted the publishing process, the interaction and communication with their authors, because they have a long list of authors. The kind of work they were putting out was very good. I just thought it was a very sort of collaborative approach to get your work out there and seen. and so far it's been very mutually beneficial for both of us. So that's kind of why I went with them, and yeah, it's been very nice. So.
Yeah, it seems like the case. I mean, it's now out there in the ether, which is fantastic. We can all consume it, so it's certainly got tick number one from the publisher. Just veering slightly from Abandon itself and to the publishing industry more broadly, what's your take on the independent book market and its future? Are more opportunities for aspiring authors emerging?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think if you're going to become a writer, it's probably the best time to become a writer at the moment. It's never been easier. You know, if you think several years back when it was strictly through traditional publishers, and they were very sort of specific about what they were putting out. You know, often they would miss. I'm assuming, you know, great works of fiction or non-fiction and whatnot. Yeah. But nowadays, you know, you don't necessarily have to go through that very strict, you know, regimented. You know, it's very much that you can just write what you want to write and go through different avenues. Like even if you self-publish, you know, there's always options for self-publishing. You know, as I said, it's never been an easier time to become a writer and get your work out there and you know, let the world know whatever you want them to know. You know, whether it's fiction or non-fiction or whatnot. So yeah, I think it's been very good. Been very expensive, and I think as well it's only going to get bigger. Like, you know, I was hearing those numbers you were throwing out beforehand. It's just growing, and especially with the pandemic and everyone in lockdown, there's a huge need and demand for entertainment or information, or, you know, there's just a lot of interest out there to grab a book and read something.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more, mate. And of course, at the top of this expert talks, we were discussing $2.6 billion is the projected growth, and that's how much the publishing industry in the country will be worth by 2024. So hopefully you get a nice big piece of the pie from that. We're also talking a little bit there about it's very easy for writers to get in, but there's other avenues to get your work out there. With Abandon, are we looking at potential audiobooks coming out? Is there film rights, book signings, tours? What have you got? The whole rock star treatment?
Well, I've been doing a lot of press and marketing at the moment. The publisher, AUROAR House, has started their sort of marketing plan for my book, but I've already been doing a lot of interviews. You know, a couple of articles have come out about the book. I've got a podcast interview coming out tomorrow. So I've just been doing the press and marketing side of things right now. No information regarding any film rights or anything like that. I feel like to make this book into a film, you'd need millions and millions and millions of dollars. So that might, maybe later down the track.
Yeah, crazier things have happened.
Well, they actually had a thing in the contract about audio and film rights, but I made an agreement with them to retain those rights myself in case I decide to do anything with those instead of going through them. So that was a deal I made. But audio book, possibly, that could possibly happen. Just got to see how we go in terms of sales and interest.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, mate. And just before I let you go, how can we get a copy of Abandon? And given you're doing all this press circuit at the moment, how can we follow your journey?
Yeah, the best place would be to follow me on Instagram, JM4N8. And in terms of purchasing it, you can get it through my website, jessehylandmedia.com, but you can also get it through Amazon, Book Depository, Kinokuniya, Dymocks, all the main book websites you can get it from very easily. You know, Booktopia, Angus and Robinson, you'll be able to find it.
Yeah, perfect, mate. Hopefully it becomes a bestseller and we can get those film rights as well. I'm rooting for you. But Jesse, thank you so much for joining 𝐊𝐶 TV's Expert Talks Executive Corner.
No worries, mate. Cheers.
That's Jesse Hyland, author of crime thriller Abandoned, which has been published with AUROAR House. And I can tell you now, I've got a copy myself. It is well worth a read, not one you want to miss. An incredible first up effort from the new author. Well, that is all the time we've got for this expert talk. Hope you enjoyed it. Of course, you can always head back onto our website and check it all out once again. But we, of course, have more incredible guests lined up on the horizon, so make sure to tune in regularly to 𝐊𝐶 TV for the latest. I'm James Preston for 𝐊𝐶 TV.